Hey everyone, welcome to a interview that we have magically set up with Tim Schafer.
Speaking of magic,
Tim Schafer is in the studio.
Yeah.
That's something I was not expecting.
It's quite a nice studio too.
But it's interesting. I mean, this is kind of like, I feel like I would have had to pay $5,000 for this, right?
Well, you guys are. Did you guys talk us down from 8? Because that's what we asked for.
No,
8,
I mean, if I'm going to be donating,
I usually get about 8,000 per.
If I'm going to be donating to your Kickstarter project, I guess. Well, maybe it's not even. Maybe you're worth 3,000 and Ron is worth.
Don't even. You're going to start a huge thing
for Tim.
We're all priceless in
You're
my
all
book.
priceless.
Yeah, I mean, we got to during Brutal Legend work with celebrities, and we found out a lot of their party rates.
Oh, really?
Like how much they get to just go to parties. Some of them get like $5,000 to go to a party.
I would do that.
I would go to a party for $5,000.
Yeah. But what we're talking about, which you guys probably you probably know. Tim, you have raised, what are we at now? You have raised $2,322,493 in about 18 days.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much to the backers. It's amazing, isn't it?
It's really, really crazy. What happened? Like how did this, what does someone need to do to make this happen?
I don't know if we lucked out because we're not the first. There've been a lot of good games on Kickstarter. We, like whenever you're pitching something, you try to have a good story, when you're talking to a publisher or we're talking to Kickstarter. And our story was, here's this type of game that we're, pulling back from the past. And there was no way to get it made. Traditional methods would not have worked to get it made. So here's something we could only do on this portal or whatever. What would you call Kickstarter? On this, using this thingamajig.
Yeah.
I think technically is the new web term for that. By this developer with this type of game at this time, just all kind of came together. And I think it was exciting. It was exciting to us, but it was exciting to other people for different reasons. I think there's like fans of Double Fine, fans of adventure games, and people who just wanted to make a statement about that they're willing to pay for stuff that they want,
I mean, not everybody. Do you feel like this was an anomaly? Because I don't think anybody can go out there and say like, "Hey, we're trying to raise some money. We want to make a game that's totally niche. If you could give us a few bucks, that'd be cool." Like, I don't think I'm struggling to think of anybody else who could really kind of pull that off.
I mean, I've been thinking about it a lot because like some people were asking like, "Was this how you're going to do every game?" But I think if we just came out with, "Hey, here's another game. Give us some more money," I think that people would be like, "No, I don't think that." I think each time it has to be a really unique opportunity for people to take part in something that feels like a happening. You know what I mean? Like it feels like an event. And I think to make a game work on Kickstarter, you have to make it an event. But you can think of other examples of things that could be great events on Kickstarter.
Yeah,
I don't want to give them away now because we're going to use every single one of them.
Right, you need to save those ideas.
Just think of like your favorite game that never got a sequel or something like that. Someone might be like, or I'm trying to think of another example. Someone just woke up from a coma.
Yeah,
that'd be a good story. That's always dramatic.
I feel like that was somebody made a game out of that. I can't remember. There was like To the Moon where his wife was in a coma or he was in a coma. I don't know. It was a recent game.
As long as no one really was in a coma, then I don't feel bad for bringing it up.
Right. I think it was totally digital. But no. So it's like you said something that was like, what was I got to say? Like, if this works out for you, like. If you make a really good game,
it's already worked out for us.
If you make a really good game, and you deliver on this promise, then you could probably do this again. I mean, are you kind of approaching it? Is there a lot of pressure to make this game like super or more pressure maybe?
There's no more pressure than there was before, just because we always are, there's no more pressure anyone can give us besides ourselves. We want to make this awesome game just for ourselves. And, we weren't going to slack off before, but I think at $300,000, I would have been, we would have been making, that's a budget of like a smaller, like an iOS game or something. Like we made a small in scope game that would have been a cool, like harkening back to those games. But this budget is comparable or the same, or it's bigger than a lot of the budgets of the old graphic adventures were at the time. Even if you adjust for inflation, it's bigger than a lot of them.
Is this the biggest budget you've had for an adventure game?
For an adventure game, I think the biggest, no, because Grim Fandango was about $3 million.
Oh, okay. So it's close. You've still got
close, and that's in 1998.
12 days to go. So
yeah. I mean but it is around the same size as Stacking and Costume Quest and Iron Brigade. So we're getting into what you might call real game. I mean, those are current games. Those are the budget of current games we made for XBLA. So
Right.
it's getting up there. Those games didn't have voice, which is pretty expensive. So there's different trade-offs we could make. But it's more pressure in that we don't think of this as like a small or a novelty or a gimmick. This is now has to stand up to everything we've been doing, and
Right.
it does have to be great. It can't just be a novel, a nostalgia trip either. I feel like we can't just only make something that only works on that level. It has to also be great, and wanted to make it great to someone who's never played an adventure game too. Or do we have to? Because maybe they didn't pay anything. So really, I want to make sure that we're making it for the people who backed it too, because they're the ones who backed it, and they're the ones who should get what they paid for it.
Yeah. I mean, this whole idea of people backing a game before it's anywhere close to being made. Oh, I assume you guys have started. Maybe you've started on it, but it's like
Not really.
Not really.
No, because we're making a documentary about it too, and we want to document the entire process,
warts and all.
Yeah,
that's going to be actually really interesting because I mean, you hear so often about, like, my coworker Brendan was talking about this. Like, Psychonauts went through this crazy process of getting published and finding publishers. Like
twice.
Yeah,
twice.
Just seeing that, like. Awful rejection over and over from you guys. There's probably some entertainment value there.
For you.
For us.
No, definitely. And that was one of it started as a documentary project, right? Yeah. Like, Two Player Productions was like, let's make a documentary about Double Fine. But what funding the game also from Kickstarter gave us was the ability to not have anyone that we had to go to for approval on anything. So we can tell people everything that happens on this game, because usually you would have a PR person from your publisher being like, you can't talk about how you had to cut this stuff because that just makes the game look lame, or you can't talk about the failures in production or something. Let's just stress the positive side of the message. And I almost like, I'm almost relishing showing the good and the bad, and even the bad, especially the bad stuff in some way, because
people like the bad stuff. I mean, it provides character. It's like, it becomes a real thing when it is a real thing.
It's just that maybe it's not still the same way, but when I was a kid, I didn't know where games came from, like where babies came from. I did like I thought Atari. I played 2600, and I just thought, you'd see pictures of Atari, and there's always this building, and I was like, I imagine there was just this this crack team of experts that just knew things that we didn't know, and I didn't realize that they were just people like us, and some of them were really even young, like I was, 16 years old and stuff, making these games. So I want people to see what goes into it, because a lot of the stuff is not as mysterious as people might think it is, and a lot of the like sometimes you watch the making of a movie on a DVD, like special features, and you're like, these people aren't any smarter than me.
Right.
And I think people definitely watching this documentary will get that same impression, like, these people are not any smarter than me.
This guy is super normal.
Yeah.
What's going on? But yeah, you were talking about like the role that Kickstarter is playing, and then kind of almost usurping the role that publishers have been playing.
Let's just say it, replacing. Publishers are gone. It's obviously
I know.
True.
I mean, do you feel like if you do this right, then you guys are just completely turning the game industry on its head?
I don't want to make too much of that. I mean, I don't think publishers are that scared by the amount of money we're talking about, because I think there's just something that it was not in their best interest to service, maybe, just because, as they would say, as they often do when they cancel your project or reject your project, it's just about numbers. This is just about numbers, like nothing personal. I love you guys.
It's just business, baby.
It's just business, just numbers. The numbers don't add up. The P&L, the profit and loss statement, doesn't add up, and that's always. So in this case, like, maybe they had no way to prove that they would get a 35% return on their investment, so they didn't make sense for them to do, and that's fine. And no hard feelings. We're going to go this other route. We've thought of a great new way with Kickstarter to get that money from someone who didn't necessarily. Who had a different set of motivations, and their motivation was like, I want to see these kind of games.
Yeah. Have you thought about like different ways other than Kickstarter and the traditional publishing route? I mean, because
bank robbery.
Other than bank robbery, because like Minecraft has this whole hey, pay for the game in beta to get us to the finish line. Spy Party's doing that. I mean, is there any kind of other business models that you think are possibly viable out there?
I'm sure there are. I mean, this is like.
Or is this just like, that one looks right, and oh my God, it was right?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to be as creative with our business as we are with our games, and I think those are great models and really groundbreaking ways to approach it. And it's like, because that process helped market their games and fund the games at the same time, like the word getting out. And Kickstarter is like this thing, it's like a publicity machine and a funding machine. So,
yeah.
And the main thing that we're going for is to have a closer connection to the fans. So there's no one in between. I can, when I give an interview, I don't have to look and see if I'm saying the wrong thing, because I can just be much more honest, and the fans can talk to me, and then I can talk to them, and it's better.
Yeah, I'm just kind of just the idea that you'd have to go around publishers. Like the way that the industry is right now is it seems like we're in this narrow kind of mindset where a game has to be this in order to get made. And it kind of narrows the scope of what is possible. Is that what you guys feel?
That's definitely the reason we did this whole Amnesia Fortnight process. The whole
I want to ask
split
you
our
about
project
that.
we split our company into 4 groups, and each group had to make a game in 2 weeks. And that was our way of kickstarting. I can't use that term anymore. That's the way of jump starting.
You can't use the word. Oh, I see.
Because we didn't. You see what I'm saying?
It's a nice little pun, though.
So that was a way of breaking our company to do multiple projects, so we could have multiple revenue streams, but also because making smaller projects, making games for smaller budgets, was a response to that pressure that you're talking about. As we talked to publishers, it wasn't easy to get Brutal Legend signed, like original IP with this crazy kind of game design, and that was really tough. And so I just saw that getting tougher and tougher because games are getting more and more expensive, and fewer big AAA developers are making them. And you hear guys like Cliff Bleszinski or the doctors from BioWare have kind of in separate talks I've been to kind of said, like, look, if you're not already making a big AAA game, you just probably can't do it. Like if you're a small studio, they're kind of like, they talk about the death of the middle. Like there's indie games and there's big AAA games, and it's getting harder and harder to be in the middle. And so I saw the pressure of making, if you're going to make one of these big $20 million and above games, that if just put yourself in the position of a publisher, if that was your money, you'd want to be absolutely assured you were going to get it back,
right,
and that you were going to make a return on it. And so you'd want probably the person to...
You'd want to meddle a little bit.
If they're like, well, this is my pet project, and it's going to be about how my mom died of cancer or something like that. My mom didn't. My mom was alive. But you know what I mean? Like you want to make a really personal, story. The guy investing $25 million would probably be like, can you take out the part about your mom dying? Because I think that will...
dog in here.
People won't like that. Yeah. Could it be on the beach? And they have to mitigate risk is the term you hear.
I mean, were there things that how would you have made Brutal? Was there anything in Brutal Legend that you're like, oh, I really don't want to do this. I cannot do this. Oh, we got to do this. Or like things that
we were forced to do, or concessions.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting. The Brutal Legend and Psychonauts both had this really interesting thing, and they both got canceled.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to pinpoint it, but I know that that had a permanent effect on the game design, because we made their game first with one publisher, and when you're starting a process with a publisher, they're really, really worried because they haven't seen anything. They don't know if your game's going to be good, so you get a lot of input, and they're like, you can see that, Psychonauts, there's a level like Mia's level, which is really platformy, and then there's another level that has a lot of puzzles, and that's because we're getting this input from our first publisher of like, make it more puzzly, no, make it less puzzly, back and forth, and that wreaked havoc on it. Then we got canceled. We went to our new publisher, and the game was almost done, so pretty much was it. So the second publisher was like, we like your game the way it is because we see it, we can play it, and we want to fund the rest of it. And that was really interesting because then we were in charge, and because we were, they trusted us to finish it in Majesco. So the same thing happened on Brutal. Like the first time we were working with Vivendi, there was a lot of input about stretching out the campaign, making it bigger and longer. So
right. I remember rumors about that time where it was like, oh, we want to make it more like Guitar Hero or something like that.
I'm scared of opening my mouth and getting stuck.
That's fine. You're all...
But initially that game was the multiplayer aspect was the core of the game. So it was like I wanted to make this game that had these strategy elements to it, and then had a little bit of a single player campaign. But am I going down too much detail now?
That's fine.
And so their input was like, we were worried people won't get all these mechanics from this multiplayer game. Can you stretch out the tutorial to have the campaign to have more missions that teach you each aspect of it? So where was I going with that? So anyway, we got canceled, and then by the time we went to EA could see the game, and they're like, oh, it's cool, we like it. And so to answer your question, if you remember, which I do,
actually,
because
I'm going to have to rewind the tape on this one.
I wrote it down. No, in the beginning, we definitely put things in the games that we were not forced to by publishers, but we were basically responding to publisher feedback. But then we were lucky enough to get canceled, so that in the second incarnation of our relationship, Yeah. There are a lot of advantages of getting canceled in a weird way. It's terrifying, though. But in the second relationship, we were much more left to finish our game the way we wanted to do it, which is good.
Yeah, I wanted to get back to Amnesia Fortnight because that's a really interesting concept. Most people don't do that, right? I mean, usually in most studios, they just kind of hammer away at a game for 2 years and never really look outside for what else they can do. And that kind of led to Costume Quest and some of those other XBLA games, right?
It definitely did. We were in the middle of Brutal Legend, and it's a 4-year game, and it was very the singular vision for that, like that, the world of heavy metal is very, there's nothing but heavy metal in that game, right? And I love that, and I didn't think everyone on the team necessarily wanted to spend 4 years in the world of heavy metal, so
right.
Kind of you can get bogged down in production that size. Yeah. So I was I had heard the story about Wong Kar-wai, the Hong Kong film director. He was making Ashes of Time, which is this 3-year production about medieval China, and he felt the same thing. That is, they're getting kind of bogged down with this oppressive epic story, and so he took his 2 stars and he took his cinematographer and a couple of cameras, and he went to Hong Kong, and they improvised around town all these scenes that he later then wrote some more dialogue for, and he filmed the rest of it in a couple of weeks, got enough footage to get the essential parts of Chungking Express and Fallen Angels, which are like his movies he's like almost more famous for than Ashes.
I wrote a paper on that movie when I was in college. It's a good movie. Go watch Chungking Express. It's good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's actually awesome.
And so that California Dreaming song gets played a little bit.
I know.
Too much in
I
movie.
love
But
that
other
song.
than that, it's really, really great. But it's I thought that was a great way to both inspire and get the team refreshed, and then also get something out of it. They filmed stuff that they ended up using, and so we stopped production on Brutal Legend for 2 weeks, and we broke the whole 60-person team into these little groups, and it also gave us a chance to promote people like Brad, who was a designer on Brutal Legend, and Nathan Maritz, who's a lead programmer, like up to take one of these projects and show that they could be a leader of a project. And then eventually Nathan led Once Upon a Monster, and Brad led Iron Brigade, and that was a 2-week test because some of the people we've done that with, the projects were less successful. So we didn't.
You're the one to pass up for this promotion.
No, I mean, it was just
you guys all have equal.
Better to risk 2 weeks on something than 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that method is a good way to retain talent. I mean, there was a news story today about a bunch of people and not to say that this is the reason for this, but like a bunch of people at Lionhead had just recently left to make their own studio. It seems like there would be less of an impetus for people at your company to leave if they're able to
kill you. That's the other thing.
Or kill you.
Because I was like, okay, I'm the only creative director here. We're doing one project at a time. If anybody else wants to have this job, they have to kill me.
Right.
Or get me fired.
Or somehow lead a mutiny.
And we only have one lead programmer and one lead artist. But then when we split into 4 teams, we had 4 lead artists needed and 4 lead programmers. And so a bunch of people got to move up. And so, it provided an opportunity for the team to show what they could do and grow.
Totally. Let's talk Double Fine Adventures. We don't really know much about this game other than it is a adventure game. I don't know what. You probably don't have anything to talk about right now yet.
No, I mean that's I'm kind of holding back on the team. People that I have a team in my head of people I'd like to put together to work on the game, but they're all working on other things. So we're gonna. How
big do you think the team will be?
Well, bigger than. Let's see. I mean,
bigger than you thought.
Games that we've done before for around $2 million have had teams from anywhere from like 9 to 12 people on them. So we don't get the whole $2 million, but we don't know where this is going to end up yet. If we end up with something like $2 million, I could see having a 9 or 10 person team.
Are you shouldering any of the risk on this? Like, are you just going to take whatever you get from Kickstarter and putting it into the project and nothing more, or do you feel like you can? Because normally the way these things work is like you kind of pay it forward, and then if it does really well, then you get more money and kind of recomp or get back your expenses in that way. Or
pay it forward.
Yeah, did I use that word? I don't even know if I used it.
I'm thinking of Kevin Spacey now for some reason.
Right.
I mean, normally you pay forward with someone else's money. You go to a publisher and you're like, hey, why don't you pay for it? And then they say, okay, and then we'll take all the money.
Right.
What if it makes it? So that's the exchange that you make. You risk someone else's money. This is more like people are showing their faith in the project in advance, and yeah, we're not. Usually, you have that risk of like, oh, I hope we're making the right game. Like we just took all our money, we took my life savings, and I banked on this game, and I hope people like it. And this time we're like, I think I know we're making the right game for the people because they've already paid their money for it.
Right.
So it does take away a lot.
Is there ever? I mean, are you guys at any point looking at this number and saying, "Okay, you guys need to stop. We have enough. You're just making us uncomfortable."
No.
Can there ever be too much money?
No, because I mean we have spent more than that in the past. I mean, Psychonauts was like ended up being over 10 million in its budget, and a lot of that because we threw away a lot of stuff in the first 2 years. But we've been a lot more efficient now with the stacking and Costume Quest and Iron Brigade coming in a lot lower than that. So no, I haven't had that urge to tell people to stop spending money. I mean, people talk about like, where's this money going to go? Are they just going to like make 2 games with it? But I mean, I just think it's a good size now for a good what we call now a good small game.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine you're pretty good at knowing how to spend money at this point.
Just hire people. Right. That's the best way to spend money. You hire people.
I mean,
when you expensive.
When you get more money, does that mean you can get the game out faster, or like what does more money actually do for you guys?
It really just adds team members and time.
Yeah. Essentially,
I mean, like we could, for $300,000, we were thinking like a 3-person team for 4 months or 6 months or something like that. Because, it just gives you, I think we're looking at something. We haven't done the full schedule yet because we don't know the final budget yet. But something like more like a regular year production, like we did for Stacking and Costume Quest.
I see.
And then we'd have, basically we'd add more programmers and more animators, and be able to hire. We don't know yet, but more voice. I hadn't really for the lower budget amount, we wouldn't have been able to afford professional voice for sure.
Right. So there's a lot of I guess a little bit
more languages, more platforms.
Right. Which platform are you looking forward to the most?
We're looking forward to the most. I mean, we've never done stuff for iPad and iOS before.
Is that super? I mean, we've been having this ongoing discussion about. Dude, dedicated gaming handhelds are dead. The Vita is dead. We can't. Those things don't even, register on developers. Is that valid? Like,
you definitely see the power of the iOS, the popularity of those games, and also having one. I've been playing Mechanarium on one. Speaking of point-and-click graphic adventures, and it's beautiful. I can take it on an airplane. It's convenient, and you can touch it. This is me playing.
Right.
So, I definitely think those are attractive platforms for that reason. But we're still, we're doing PC, we're doing Linux, we're doing.
If you support Mac. Linux, you'll support anything.
I think Linux is they are a really powerful. Like they're very vocal and they're passionate and they care a lot about it. So you get what you pay for by doing a Linux version. Like from what I've seen so far, if you're willing to put out a Linux version, you get a lot of support from the Linux community. They're like, they've been great to work with so far.
They're probably just desperate for anything at that point. Anyway, so one of the things that you were talking about with Ron Gilbert in that there's like a 35-minute, you guys have seen it probably, but the subject of interactive storytelling is very interesting, for me at least, just because it seems like we were doing the game industry, interactive storytelling, I guess, that's what I think of when I think of video games, what we do right, or where we're different or special in some way. And it seems like we were going down, or like there was a fork somewhere along the way, where like on one fork you had Doom, and then on the other fork you had like adventure game. And correct me if I'm wrong. This is just something that I see in my head. So is that kind of what happened? Like did we get away from what made interactive storytelling good? In favor of like these kind of, I don't know, the Call of Duties of the world or the Halos.
Well, what are you defining as that split? The difference between action-based or story-based games?
Yeah, just kind of I mean, right now it seems like the big emphasis is on action-based games and away from what games are actually really good at, which is interactive storytelling.
I mean, some people would say I think what games are really good at is action. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, so I think there have always been action games, and the first games were action games.
Right.
And then story games emerged, and they haven't gone away. I mean, if you're just talking about story as a
The ability to tell a story.
Not strictly point and click graphic adventures, but if you're just talking about story, then there's tons of stuff like Uncharted and LA Noire and Heavy Rain that are doing interesting stuff with storytelling in games. I mean, so I wouldn't say those are some pretty big games. So I wouldn't say that storytelling is.
Do you think it's coming around? Because most of those games are recent. It seems like we went through this phase where there weren't really any. I mean, Psychonauts obviously withstanding, but. Was there like? It seemed to me, I guess, there was just this phase where we got away from really interesting storytelling, and it's kind of coming back. Maybe.
I mean, I think the rift. There are people who are really interested in story in games, and there are people who are really not. And I think they both have valid cases because the kind of experience you have when you're playing an action game is not necessarily enhanced by having a really gripping story. Like if you're playing Call of Duty, it doesn't really.
Right.
When you're playing multiplayer, especially, like it doesn't really. It almost would get in the way. You don't. So. I think they have a point, and I think people who are really into storytelling games have a point too. And I think what's too bad is like not enough exploration of the middle, which is that what I've always maintained is that they're not enemies. Like storytelling and action and storytelling and gameplay are not enemies at all. They support each other really well, and if done right, the story just makes you hooked into the gameplay even more, and the gameplay keeps you hooked into the story.
Have you guys thought about more what you really want to do right with Double Fine Adventure's story?
We've made a list so far of all the things we want to do wrong.
Okay,
so that's where we start.
Can we hear some?
We want to just make sure that we have some really arbitrary puzzles that have no way of being solved through natural methods.
Right.
We have a really long opening cutscene that's unskippable.
Right.
Several unskippable cutscenes all the way through it.
Okay.
Every time you walk through a door. Maybe.
I'm with you so far.
No. What do we want to do right? I want to make a game that's beautiful,
right,
and a game that is fresh seeming, like not like, even though it is really, we want to make something that's true to the games of yore. Can you call the 90s yore?
Yore?
Yeah, yore.
Totally. I think the game industry operates like dog years
fresh.
or something.
What?
Game industry is kind of like dog years.
Yeah,
where
exactly.
Like 30 years for the game industry is 30,000 years for that.
So I'm 30,000 years old.
Basically, you were 30,000 years old. It's good. That basically makes you
some days I feel like 30,000 years old.
You're definitely here since the beginning of time. I totally interrupted you. I'm sorry.
What was I talking about?
The games of yore.
Oh, that even though I want to be true to those and not be like making some compromise thing where we've shoved in a bunch of action sequences or something, I want to make it true to that, but also feel fresh, like something that feels, modern, but has everything that was good about those old adventure games.
Yeah, because the kind of the way you guys were talking about it is adventure games are a niche genre. Is there any desire to kind of try to move it out of that niche, or you just want to hit that niche perfectly?
Well, that's an interesting question for this project because we were always trying to expand the genre when we made those old games. Like when we did Day of the Tentacle, we thought having these big full screen animations would make it more mass appeal, because like be bigger, more exciting. Brutal Legend, I mean, Full Throttle was obviously like attempt to have a different kind of hero that I thought would be more exciting for people, and have a lot of, and Grim Fandango going to 3D. We were always trying to do something new that would bring in new people and adding voice and, make people more excited about playing them. So that's why I say I don't want to make it like only purely nostalgia because adventure games, I don't want to treat them like they're in a museum and untouchable, But also, these people have backed the project not because they didn't like adventure games, but because they did like them. So, who should we chase after? The people who didn't back the project, or the people who did back the project? Right. I feel like we should be chasing out the people who did back the project, but you don't. It falls into that weird rule where you don't necessarily give people exactly what they want because you try to figure out what they really want.
Right.
Like
God, yeah. These people, they have no idea what they want.
Who are you looking at?
I'm looking at the camera right there. I'm pointing at that guy in the corner over there.
I think people want to be surprised. Yeah. I think that's what I find entertaining about any sort of like a movie or I just love to be surprised. And I think it's hard for people to ask to be surprised because they want to say something specific, like, oh, I really like this type of music. I like this type of art. Give it to me. And then you could give it to them and they're like, yeah, that's what I asked for. Yeah. But really, what they really wanted was just to have that feeling they had the first time they saw that kind of art and heard that kind of music. They want to be surprised, and they want to be taken somewhere, and they want to be transported to this crazy world and have an amazing adventure.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the age-old struggle for the creative of trying to give people what they want before they know that they actually want it.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you were trying to get people interested in adventure games, which 3 would you recommend?
If they've never played an adventure game,
played an adventure game, you wanna give them a good, solid impression to turn them on to the genre.
This is hard because do I talk about games I've worked on or games I haven't worked on?
Top 3. I don't know. Do you want to make a sale? Make a sale.
I don't get money from those old games.
Oh, okay. Then why does it matter? Just go for it.
I mean, Grim Fandango was the kind of the that was the last one I did at LucasArts, so I felt like it was the culmination of everything we had been, or that I had been learning about making adventure games. So I felt like we went the farthest with that one in terms of really creating a world and a look and a feel and an ambiance. You know, so I could wholeheartedly recommend that game if you can find a way to play it.
Yeah.
It's hard to make these old games run.
Right.
There's things like Scum VM and Residual that like these websites that will help you run an emulator to play these old games.
Mm-hmm. So that's 1. Grim Fandango is 1.
Oh, Jimmy.
Reach deeper into that bag.
I feel it's awkward because I don't want to sit here and talk about.
We can move on. Do you want to move on?
Do you want to suggest one? You tell me one, I'll tell you whether or not it's good or not. Wow, I'm seeing my eyes. I'm so sleepy looking.
You look like you could use a nap. Anyway, Secret of Monkey Island's pretty good.
Oh, yeah, Secret of Monkey Island.
There we go.
Yeah. I can recommend that because that's really Ron's game.
Right. Oh,
I just worked on it. Mm-hmm. I was just a writer on it and a designer, programmer. But I loved going back and playing that in the special editions because I had forgotten puzzles, which is really weird because, you know, Dave and Ron and I sat around and designed all those puzzles, and now I couldn't solve them. I was like, how do you, what the? As one I even had to look up on the internet, which is really embarrassing to have to look up on the internet how to solve your own puzzle. So, yeah, but those were fun games in that they had a kind of a fun tone to them, and that there's something innocent about Monkey Island. You know, Guybrush is such a he's not a really cynical character. I mean, there's some cynical jokes in there about not paying more than $20 for an adventure game or computer game, but I mean, it's still pretty. I don't know. The games kind of there's something gentle about Monkey Island that I like. Still,
yeah,
funny. Sometimes. Funny.
Anyway, jokes in there. One other thing I want to talk about: internet, like designing an adventure game.
Talk about the internet.
In the days of the internet, like these games seem like they're. Like, are you trying to do anything to give people a reason not to go just jump to their web browser and say, how do I get past this? Do you have any way of cracking that nut? Because it seems like if people can just get walkthroughs, they're really defeating the point of
Well, I talked about that a little bit before, that how, you know, when I play adventure games, I would not look for hints for the longest time, maybe halfway through the game. And then I hit that puzzle I just couldn't get past, and I would hit the hint book with a little red decoder where it would look down, and then I would just hit it all the time as soon as I got stuck at all, because you get addicted to that kind of momentum, which is too bad. And I like, and so like Mechanarium is kind of interesting. They make you play this little action game every time you want a hint. So you don't instantly do it because it is kind of just time consuming to go press. This is me playing the button with it, and you so they put a little bit of a deterrent for you getting a hint, which is, I think, important to have like a little bit of a deterrent, so you try to work through it. I think you don't see that often nowadays. Like the old Lucas hint books always gave you progressive hints. So the first one would be kind of like, have you thought about the wind, and like really obscure, and then a little less obscure, and then the third one would just tell you the answer.
They're more hints and not so much just straight out answers.
Yeah. But I think would make people still feel like they had solved it.
Yeah.
They had heard a hint, you know?
I mean, but can you counter that in any way?
I think in general, you want people not have to ever use a hint, but because you can put hints in the game itself, in the context of the game, in the fantasy. So just people that whenever you talk to them, give you a little bit more of there's something funny. Why did they use that word? Why did they emphasize that word? Oh, that's right. I'm supposed to, you know, it just clicks in your mind, and then you don't feel like you cheated at all, because you just talked to somebody in the game, and that was fine, and you still solved the puzzle, you know. So just try and make it so the game, you know, adventure games.
The game is a little passive aggressive in this way, where they just keep on
passive aggressive about that.
They just keep on. Hey, maybe you should look at that.
That's not. See, I wouldn't call it passive aggressive. That's friendly teasing and encouragement of like, come on. You know,
I know it's in you. I believe.
Yeah, can you do it? It's like an older brother. Like an older brother when they tell you a riddle and you're like, what? I don't understand. I don't get it at all. And you're like, if he had seen the sawdust, he wouldn't have pulled the trigger. And you're like, what? What? He's a midget. No, what?
Sawdust.
It's an old joke that
went over everyone's head.
There's a man laying face down in the field.
Oh, I've heard of those.
Remember that one? My older brother.
Is that the one where he fell out of a?
Well, no. See, you're just spoiling. You're doing the walkthrough.
I did.
You did. You're supposed to sit there and go like, you can ask yes or no questions. Like, is he wearing a backpack? Yes.
Yes.
What's in it? And you have to ask a yes or no question. And then so your brother would be like, ask me about the backpack. You haven't thought about the backpack at all, have you?
Wearing.
Yeah. Is the backpack empty? Yes. The backpack's empty. Like that kind of like. That used to always make us really excited about like trying to figure out this riddle, you know, and I think the best games do that too. They're kind of like, have you thought about the backpack? And like, you're like, oh, what is it about the backpack? I should be able to solve this. You should always feel like you should be able to solve it.
So the secret there is just try to create a situation where it's right on the tip of the player's tongue and they can't help themselves but to.
Exactly. And that the act of feeling confused is entertaining and not frustrating.
Right. And I'd imagine you do that by being funny or something along those lines. Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? Anything? Open mic? Open camera? Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. I fell asleep during that.
What happened?
On that whole theme of
too much candy, or?
I said I had a crack in my tooth.
Oh God.
Yeah.
We should stop talking about this. You will be
Happy Action Theater. Did we talk about Happy Action Theater? Have you played it yet?
I haven't. Yeah. Is that what you were here for? No. I don't even know because Brendan just kind of handed this off to me.
I just like to mention things. I just like to mention things.
This is your promo period. Go.
Yeah, can I plug Happy Action Theater? It's our Connect toy that we just released, where you get to fill your living room with hot lava. Yeah, I recommend it.
Okay, awesome. It's out now.
Now on XBLA.
$15,
and also Rise of the Martian Bear, our new DLC pack for Iron Brigade, which is awesome.
Iron Brigade, yeah, Iron Brigade is awesome.
Thank you. But not the Happy Action. You're saying that
I haven't played it yet. I don't know. I can't. I have journalistic integrity. I can't just what?
Journalistic integrity.
Anyway, I think that does it for today. Tim, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.